Tennessee adds their veteran quarterback to battle for the starting job. Arkansas loses their quarterback of the future, and it all ties back to Nico Iamaleava. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along on today's show. We'll talk about Tennessee adding their new veteran quarterback, Arkansas losing Nico's little brother, and the latest on the SEC and the transfer portal. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. All right, we start with the news over at Tennessee as they are adding their transfer quarterback to replace Nico Iamaleava, and that is going to be Joey Aguilar, the UCLA quarterback, former App State quarterback, transferred to UCLA this offseason, entered the transfer portal, and now, without even playing a snap at UCLA, he is in the portal and heading to Tennessee. His arrival means the Vols will have an experienced quarterback in place of Nico Iamaleava. Aguilar has just 1 year of eligibility remaining, and in his college career, he's completed 60% of his passes, 56 touchdowns, 24 picks, led the Mountaineers to a 9-win season in 2023. App State took a little bit of a step back last year, a 5-6 season. And like we said, Aguilar entered the transfer portal during the winter period. His head coach, Sean Clark, was fired. And, man, what a loop this this makes now with basically a trade is what was pulled off. Nico Iamaleava leaves Tennessee for UCLA, and Joey Aguilar leaves UCLA for Tennessee. Tennessee now has 3 scholarship quarterbacks on their roster: Aguilar, Jake Merklinger, and true freshman George McIntyre. And a lot of this becomes, it seems like it'll be a 2-horse battle between Aguilar and Jake Merklinger. I think the big question is how quickly does Jake Merklinger, mature and improve, and is he ready to earn this job now? Or is Aguilar that talented that he can hold him up? Hold him off. Keep in mind, this is a step up in competition. I mean, he was going from App State to UCLA. To go from that to the SEC is certainly a pretty significant step up in competition. Now, Tennessee, they are reportedly going to save money on this deal as they replace Nico Iamaleava with Joey Aguilar. According to ESPN's Pete Thamel, Aguilar was expected to make $1.2 million at UCLA. After agreeing to a deal with the Vols, Thamel reports Aguilar will make close to that $1.2 million to play in Knoxville. Yahoo's Ross Dellinger says that Iamaleava was scheduled to make $2.4 million from Tennessee this year before the sides parted ways earlier this month. That report suggests Tennessee could be saving half that money, basically. I mean, if you were going to pay one guy 2.4 and now you're paying the next guy 1.2, that means you have, using my SEC math, $1.2 million left remaining in NIL funds. And look, we saw the pivot LSU made when they lost Bryce Underwood. They had all that money, all those millions set aside to pay Bryce Underwood, the top quarterback recruit. He flips in the 11th hour to Michigan. LSU pivots. They say, all right, well, we've raised all this money. Let's go spend it in the transfer portal. And LSU finished with, I don't know, was the number 1 portal class. I don't know if it changed or whatever, but one of the top portal classes this offseason, LSU got. I saw even folks like Clay Travis said, well, now Tennessee, you got to go put those millions you saved into better players at other positions. Problem is, it's the spring portal, right? I mean, it's a little bit more limited than the original winter portal where there was, seemingly had a bevy of really good players in there. Not to say there's not good players in there now, but most people would say probably not the best, probably not as elite talent in the spring portal versus the winter portal. But anyway, be interested to see how Tennessee uses that money. Iamaleava's compensation at UCLA is still not yet known Ross Dellinger reports it is expected to be less than that $2.4 million he was set to make had he stayed at Tennessee. So as Chris Lowe says, the quarterback trade is complete. Joey Aguilar plans to sign with Tennessee after transferring to UCLA from App State. Trades places with Nico Iamaleava and Joey Aguilar headed to Tennessee. Let's see what he does. Now, for Josh Heupel and company, they are hoping for the best. What are people saying about this move with Danny Cannell, of all people? He tweeted out, I hope Joey Aguilar balls out for Tennessee. One guy at Austin Vols said, one thing is assured, the world is rooting for Joey Aguilar to kick butt with the Vols. At Classless Vols said, motivated Joey Aguilar is going to be Diego Pavia if Diego Pavia was actually good at football. That's not nice. Then Will West, WNML, says, I don't know who needs to hear this, but Joey Aguilar is a better college quarterback than Nico. Doesn't have the pro upside, but that never won a single game for anyone. And you all know we haven't carried a drop of water for anyone in this. That's my honest belief, having watched both guys. Again, with Aguilar, threw for 6,700 yards, 56 touchdowns in 2 years as a starter at App State. Here's what some have said about him. 2023 proved to be a problem. He set records left and right and led the Mountaineers to wins over an undefeated and previously ranked James Madison team and a Cure Bowl victory. They played Clemson that year. Here's what Dabo Swinney said. He said he's special. He holds just about every record that you can have up there at App State at quarterback, and they got a lot of great quarterbacks. Also in 2023, Aguilar set new program records for single-season passing yards, passing touchdowns, total offensive yards, passing attempts, and completions on his way to winning new Sun Belt Newcomer of the Year honors. And in fact, you go back to 2023, Aguilar's 33 passing touchdowns in that regular season trailed only Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels and third-place finisher Bo Nix. Was named the Cure Bowl MVP. And like we said, in just 2 years at App State, climbed up those career lists. Number 5 in touchdown passes, number 5 in passing yards. And he was behind a bunch of 3- and 4-year starters with those numbers. So, kid's got the tools. He's got the skill set. Josh Heupel is going to get to work on him. We're going to see what Aguilar looks like. But this is just the unknown. Some guys can come from a lower level and come to a higher level and succeed. Or even just another conference. You know, Diego Pavia coming from New Mexico looked pretty damn good at Vanderbilt. But then you have your Peyton Thorns that come from Michigan State that don't ever really look good at Auburn. What is Aguilar going to be? That is the question. But look, I think if you're a Tennessee fan, this is about the best you could ask for. I know there were some Tennessee fans holding out hope for Avery Johnson from Kansas State or Sam Levitt from Arizona State. I just think at this point in the offseason, a lot of those were unreasonable. And this one just makes a lot of sense, right? He was going to be odd man out at UCLA. He's got some skins on the wall from his time at App State. Why not bring him in, let him compete? And that's what Josh Heupel kind of said was, you know, we believe in Jake Merklinger. We believe in George McIntyre. But we're going to bring in another veteran quarterback just to compete and push those guys and may the best man win. And this is almost an ideal situation. Aguilar's got 1 season left. Go make it a special season. This Vols roster is pretty loaded. If Aguilar comes in, keeps his head down, connects with these receivers, develops some quick chemistry, could be a nice year for Tennessee. They could make the playoff again. And then you're set up for the future with Merklinger and everyone else. And obviously what the quarterback that they're bringing over from out of high school in North Carolina, one of the top quarterback recruits. So, you know, it's about the best you could have done if you're Tennessee. Like we said, barring getting a big monster name from another school. But, you know, this being the end of April, it was going to be hard to pull anybody away and teach them the new playbook and all that kind of stuff. All right, the other domino that fell. We know that Nico Iamaleava chose UCLA a couple of days ago. Well, on Monday evening, we find out his brother, Madden Iamaleava, who chose Arkansas. Remember, he was committed to UCLA, flipped to Arkansas in the early signing period, and just a few months after signing with Arkansas, Madden Iamaleava, younger brother of Nico, informed coaches he planned to enter the transfer portal. was shared by Matt Zenitz on Monday evening. Like we said, it was a late addition to Arkansas signing class, was previously committed to UCLA. One day after his older brother decided to commit to the Bruins, Madden enters the transfer portal. And now we know that Madden is expected to follow his brother to UCLA. Hayes Fawcett sharing that news Monday night. Like I said, Nico Iamaleava officially committed to the Bruins over the weekend, and now he'll be in a position to share the locker room with his younger brother for at least one season. Madden was a four-star prospect, the number 22 quarterback in the country for the class of 2025. He was the highest-rated offensive player to sign with the Razorbacks in the most recent high school recruiting class, of course, from Long Beach, California. And he will join his brother there. And so somebody tweeted, is UCLA, are they the only – they're the only ones that can basically deal with the Iamaleava family at this point, right? Because I guess Madden could have went elsewhere, but he will join his brother, and they will be all together. But UCLA freshman quarterback Robert McDaniel, this news came out Monday evening too. Robert McDaniel reportedly entering the transfer portal, according to Bruin Report Online, and that comes after the expected arrival of the two brothers, Nico and Madden. So all the dominoes here with quarterbacks falling, but like I said, loss for Arkansas. Now they're going to have to find their quarterback of the future, losing Madden Iamaleava, and Tennessee gets Joey Aguilar. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Hey, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. With Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it easy and fast to get tickets, playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here's some reasons to use Game Time. Like I said, you can get Lowe's last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute for sporting events, concerts, comedy, theater. The all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay when you toggle that feature on. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, get $20 off. That is only on the Game Time app. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. So hopefully we have closed the door on that saga. A little bit later in the week, we'll talk more in depth on the Joey Aguilar edition at Tennessee. We'll actually do a crossover edition for our buddy Eric Kane, Locked On Vols. So we'll get more in depth for the Vol audience out there. And look, if you're an SEC fan, you got to know what you're going to be facing. If you got Tennessee on your schedule, potentially you could be facing Joey Aguilar this season. So we'll get more in depth into that a little bit later in the week. But first, we got to catch you up on some of the happenings in the transfer portal the last day or so. Get you caught up on the latest news. And first up, over at Georgia, a couple of former Georgia wide receivers committed to Purdue on Monday. Nitro Tuggle and Michael Jackson. Yes, interesting name. Both entered the portal earlier this spring, and they will now be continuing their college careers with Barry Odom and the Boilermakers. Tuggle's commitment was first shared by On3. He, on the field, only caught 3 passes for 34 yards last season in his true freshman year. As a former 4-star prospect, the number 102 player in the class of 2024. Jackson started his college career at USC, played sparingly for the Bulldogs last season, just caught 1 pass for 10 yards. So both those guys heading up to Purdue. We'll see if either contributes up there. Meanwhile, over at South Carolina, former 4-star O-lineman Cam Pringle could be one and done with the Gamecocks. He has decided to enter the transfer portal. Spent just 1 season with the Gamecocks, played sparingly, was one of the highest-rated offensive line recruits under Shane Beamer there at South Carolina. He redshirted last year, so he will still have all 4 years of eligibility remaining. According to Pro Football Focus, he played just 6 snaps last season on the O-line for South Carolina, but had tons of offers from schools like Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee. Of course, if he decides to go to an SEC school, he'll have to sit out this whole next year for eligibility requirements. So likely off to a non-SEC school. But South Carolina coming off a 9-win season last year, looking to build on that success. They'll lose a little bit of depth there on the O-line. How about over at Auburn? They added an all-SWAC D lineman in James Ash, who is returning to the Power 4 ranks. He is 6'4", 280 pounds, played at Florida A&M last season on their D-line. It's the second transfer of his career. His first move was going from the ACC to the SWAC. He originally signed with Wake Forest back in 2020. Spent the past 3 seasons at Florida A&M. Going off the best season of his career last year, he had 44 tackles, 17 solo, 3.5 tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks, 2 quarterback hurries, and he earned all SWAC second team recognition. He had 4 games with 5 tackles or more. So productive player there on that D-line. James Ash heading up to Auburn. Over at Ole Miss, receiver Jordan Smart and O-lineman Cam East have entered the portal. Smart joined Ole Miss after transferring in from North Texas last year, appeared in just 3 games and redshirted. Jordan Smart caught 1 pass for 34 yards last year, did so in the game against Duke. Meanwhile, Cam East spent the last 3 years with the Rebels, appeared in 2 games in 2022, redshirted. He saw playing time in 2 games for Ole Miss in 2023 and did not appear in a game in 2024. So both those guys moving on. Keep an eye on where they end up. Over at Tennessee, offensive tackle Larry Johnson committed as a top junior college prospect at Tennessee back in 2022. And after 2 seasons in Knoxville, he is heading elsewhere. He entered his name into the transfer portal. Thanks to Coach Heupel, the Tennessee staff, Tennessee fans. Said after much thought and prayer, decided to enter the transfer portal. Came to Tennessee after a season spent at Hutchinson Community College in Kansas. After his year there, he was the number 19 JUCO prospect, the number 5 offensive tackle coming out, and ended up with the Vols. But obviously, Tennessee with some losses through the portal. Got Nico Iamaleava, wide receiver Dayton Sneed, DB John Slaughter, and throw Larry Johnson, the offensive tackle, into that mix as well. Over at Mississippi State, O-lineman Malik Ellis has entered the portal. Spent 2 seasons with the Bulldogs, appeared in 11 games in 2023. And last year as a second-year player, played only 1 game, took a red shirt, and hit the transfer portal. So he is heading elsewhere. Prior to enrolling at Mississippi State, was reviewed as a pretty good offensive line recruit. It was a 3-star prospect, and it's the number 49 offensive tackle in his class. So Malik Ellis on the move there at Mississippi State. One other move, senior quarterback Jake, Weir, W-E-I-R. He has entered the transfer portal. Tupelo native, will have 1 year of college eligibility remaining. He's a former walk-on. And you look at the Mississippi State depth chart as far as quarterbacks go. You got Baylor transfer Blake Shapen, who's expected to be the starter with 1 more year of eligibility. And they also added Florida State standout recruit Jake Cromanhook, and Austin Peay transfer Chris Parson out of the portal. So kind of lost his footing there. Was not gonna be very high on the depth chart there at Mississippi State. And one hoops nugget when it comes to transfer portal. How about Florida transfer guard Denzel Aberdeen announced his commitment to Kentucky? So Aberdeen will stay in the SEC and continue his college basketball career. After 3 seasons at Florida, he entered the portal on Monday, announcing his commitment to Kentucky. Decision to transfer surprised a lot of folks in the college basketball world. They thought, Florida, the reigning national champs, okay, he's going to be a big-time contributor for Todd Golden next year. Over 3 seasons, playing 84 games with Florida, primarily coming off the bench, but this past year averaged 19 minutes a game and also made 5 starts, filling in when Walter Clayton Jr. and Elijah Martin dealt with injuries. Like we said, was in line for a starting spot at Florida, but he will head to Kentucky and join Mark Pope's crew, where he will hope to play a good bit there. And starts against Mississippi State and South Carolina. He scored 20 points and 22 points this year, finished the season averaging 7.7 points per game. He scored 12 in that Sweet 16 win over Maryland, and then he had 7 points in the national championship game against Houston a couple weeks ago as Florida won the national championship. And there you have it. That's the latest news going on in the transfer portal. Expect more news and happenings over the next couple days when it comes to the transfer portal and guys who are in the portal starting to pick what schools they're going to end up at. So there you go. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Hey, look, baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. And with Prize Picks, you pick more than or less than on at least 2-player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. And this week, you may want to go with one of the baseball stars. Go with Aaron Judge for more than 1 home run. Go with Shohei Ohtani for more than 1 stolen base. It's that easy to build a lineup. Setting a lineup takes less than 60 seconds. And when you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure. You can also take advantage of things like Taco Tuesday, where Prize Picks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. Download the app today. Use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, we're along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And as we dive back into it, I do want to mention this story. TV ratings could factor into determining college football playoff bids for conferences, according to a report. College football playoff leaders are set to meet in Texas this week for their annual spring meetings, and they'll be discussing a lot of pressing topics, including the college football playoff format for 2026 and beyond. Over the past few months, it's been widely reported that the SEC and Big Ten are pushing for a 14 or 16 team playoff that would include 4 automatic qualifiers. Each for the 2 conferences, the ACC and Big 12, would receive fewer automatic qualifiers, reportedly 2 for each. And reported formats also provide an automatic bid for Notre Dame if they meet a ranking requirement and the top group of 5 conference champion. The remaining spots would go to 1 or 3 at-large bids. And the suggested formats with automatic qualifiers has been a polarizing topic. A new report from ESPN's Heather Dinich says that some commissioners are hoping to hear alternative ideas during the spring meetings. According to Dinich, one suggestion is that conferences could earn automatic bids instead of having a set allotment. She says that TV ratings could potentially play a factor as well. One possibility which could be viewed as a compromise is having conferences earn automatic bids through their play each season. Dinich said, a model in which each Power 4 league can earn guaranteed spots through a combination of its team's overall records and maybe even TV ratings, according to a source, could be presented. The highest ranked conferences would earn the most automatic bids. It's worth remembering the SEC and the Big Ten, they have the bulk of the control over the format for 2026 and beyond. And so Greg Sankey going to be in that room making some decisions here. And we'll see. We'll see if anything comes out of this. But the biggest topic is playoff expansion, right? It's going to be on, are we going to 14-team playoff, 16-team playoff? Hell, let's make it a 35-team playoff. I mean, at this point, it's getting out of hand. But you understand why the SEC has gone to 16 teams. It's a bigger conference, and so they want more teams in. And who can argue with that? One more note here from some of this news. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports putting out a report that he said notable starting SEC quarterback value is expected to be near $3 million in the revenue share era. While plenty of schools have declined pay requests, a starting SEC running back in 2023, Quinshon Judkins, transferred to a Big Ten school after pay demands were rejected. Nico Iamaleava in Tennessee served as the first public high-profile rejection. And here's what Blake Lawrence wrote. He said, I've spent my career working directly with athletic departments, teams, leagues, brands, agents, and athletes to navigate NIL and endorsements. He said, starting quarterbacks are always negotiating their NIL value, not just when the portal opens. Historically, SEC starting quarterbacks earn about 23.5% of their team's budget. With average budgets of around $13.5 million this fall, that puts the value for an SEC quarterback at about $3.2 million a year. He said, according to Open Doors Market Intel, the average annual value of an NIL contract for an SEC quarterback in the 95th percentile is $1.6 million. That's based on last year's numbers. And now everyone knows the market doubled, right? With going into the revenue share, sharing money from that pool from the TV revenue, numbers have gone up. So basically he says, did Nico's camp, or were they just looking at that and saying, look, the market's changed, pay our guy more? And he said Tennessee stood firm. The quarterback moved on. The sky didn't fall. No hit to recruiting, no brand damage, just business as usual. He said for years, schools feared saying no to NIL demands, afraid it would cost them in the long run. But this may be the first high-profile case that showed the opposite. A program held its line, and the public response was, that's how this works. He said, now this shift won't happen overnight. One viral narrative could still shake confidence, but this moment gave every coach and AD in the country a little more breathing room at the negotiation table. I'm a little bit against the whole, when we start putting NIL value, right? When we start saying, well, a quarterback in the SEC should earn, 23 to 24% of their team's budget. It's kind of the tough part, like in the NFL, right? Like quarterbacks are some of the highest paid, and there are some quarterbacks that eat up 24% of their team's cap, but it's not all like that, right? You draft a rookie quarterback who has success on a rookie deal, you have more money to play with at other positions. So it's not a one-for-one comparison when we compare it to the NFL and a cap on a salary cap. So it's a little bit different. I get what he's saying, though. There is going to be more money to play with. But again, that money is for all sports. That money is to also pay for basketball and baseball and gymnastics and all these other teams. So, if you're going to say it's $23 million, and if the SEC quarterback makes 23.5% of that team's budget, then it should go up from $13.5 million. The average budget's going from $13.5 million to, over $20 million. Then that SEC quarterback value is $3.2 million. I just think that's insane. Like that's a lot of money. You think Vanderbilt's going, yeah, you're right. Diego Pavia should be getting $3.2 million. And then I think the baseball team's going to go, hey, if he's getting that much, like, do we have any money left over in the kitty for us? And what about the alignment? What about the defensive lineman? I mean, again, it's just, I get everybody's got their hand out, but this is why teams are hiring GMs. This is why Jim Nagy went to Oklahoma. You gotta have salary cap experts. You got to have people that are going to be really good at managing this money and shifting it around. But I think you're also going to have the Tennessees that are going to go, no, that's way too much money to give to you. And keep in mind, Nico was just pretty good. He wasn't a great quarterback. What if a great quarterback emerges this year and puts his hand out and says, I need $4 million? If this were a couple years ago, Jaden Daniels winning a Heisman at LSU, yes, he deserves that. Caleb Williams at USC, Heisman Trophy winner, yes. Travis Hunter at Colorado wants $2-3 million, yes. You're best player in college football, Heisman Trophy winner, yes. You should deserve that kind of money. But for a largely unproven quarterback who's just been pretty average, that's more money than Tennessee was willing to part with, and rightfully so. So, again, I think it's a good argument to make, but I also think it's a little bit overreactionary to go, well, this is the market. This is what every quarterback in the SEC should be making. No, the great SEC quarterback should be making, could be making $3 to $4 million, not mid-tier SEC quarterbacks. Like, you got to be really good. And again, keep in mind, they're not the only ones getting paid. That money's got to be spread around to all the sports to help take care of your stars and be competitive. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.